Do we have any GT metrics for Flutter app in online? GT metrics like for the Flutter app. Are you familiar with GT metrics, Andrew?
I am, now that I just loaded it up and took a look at it. When I saw that question come in, it looks like performance metrics specifically for Flutter. Yeah, I know Google has Lighthouse, which is one that they use as well. I don't know that there exists if you're asking if there's a particular tool that works very well with Flutter apps as far as load time and like time to first frame and stuff like that for online ones. I don't think I've seen anything specifically for that. I do know that they're working on some more stuff to make that time in between when you hit a page for the first time and when you see that first Flutter frame. They're working on a better experience in that little gap when it's downloading the code and getting things spun up. That's something that just like on mobile, you can have a native splash screen just for that little split second in between when the app loads and when Flutter starts painting pixels. You can have a native splash screen to kind of make that a better experience. I know they're looking at ways to do that on web as well, so that you could show like something like Gmail does, where it does a little animation as it's loading Gmail into your browser. So if that's something you're wondering about, that particular kind of performance, I know that's something the team's working on right now.
Nice.
Hopefully that was a useful response.
For the next one is from Trevor Davis, and he says, sorry if this is an old topic, by the way, this is totally fine. I feel like there's no such thing as old topics. Like, for example, I know that like null safety came out recently-ish, so that's like the hot topic to talk about right now, but still, you know, as developers, there's so many things that we need, and even, I don't know, like how to handle strings can be something that you need to talk about right now, so it's totally fine. So could you talk about why AdMob doesn't work for Flutter Web?
Yeah, I'm probably uniquely positioned because I used to be on the AdMob team at Google. And so I know a little bit about that world before I sort of stumbled onto Flutter and was like, this is way better than ads, and then started doing Flutter full time. AdMob doesn't, it is a purely mobile service. And so there is no web equivalent of that if you are a webmaster or own websites. AdMob itself isn't meant for that. It's designed to be quick and easy to integrate into a mobile application. Google does have other ads products, though. There's also AdSense, which is purely for websites, and there's also what used to be called DoubleClick for publishers, and is now called, I think, Google Ad Manager. That's for bigger publishers. Google Ad Manager does, as a service, support mobile clients and web clients. So you can define like, I would like an ad and I'm going to give it this name, and I would like to load, ads using this setup that I made on both mobile apps and websites. And this is something you can set up right now. The client that we have for Flutter is not able to do that. It can load mobile ads from that source, but not web ads. I imagine that over the next 6 months or a year or something like that, as the revenue starts growing for Flutter's mobile ads, the ads team is going to start looking for ways to make that experience better. And that, I think, is one way that they can, because I don't know anybody else that has a single plugin or solution for apps that deploy both to the web and to mobile, where you could just have a single ad unit and a single set of code to do the integration, and it just works across those 3 platforms. That's something that Flutter is uniquely positioned to do, but it'll take the ads team deciding to make that change. And so those are the sorts of things. Flutter keeps growing. Every time we have a big event, we have a new number of how many users we have developing with Flutter and how many apps there are. And as that number keeps getting bigger, more and more teams inside Google are coming to us and talking about ways that they can integrate with our stuff better and better serve the Flutter developer audience. Ads did that already by helping us with that new plugin. And I think in the next, like I said, 6 months, a year, maybe, we'll probably have a conversation about how we can make that even better. So,
by the way, to expand on that, so for the AdSense team, do they also have like a list of their pipeline and what they're working on, or can we like also make a suggestion to them, uh, like, hey, can you do this for Flutter on their board, or do they not have that? I've never checked it out.
I don't think so. Ads was always a weird business compared to Flutter. One of the things I like about Flutter is I get to work with everybody. Every single person working with Flutter is equally important to me. On ads, that was definitely not the case for a lot of folks, because there are some big businesses that are critical to business and things like that. But for Flutter, our world is different in that sense. We're also much more open than they can be, because they compete with people in different ways. If you want certain things from AdSense, the Flutter quarterly survey is a great place to put those in the open text bits. We comb through those responses. We just got a new report, and like we look through every single response that people put in to that survey. And if we have like multiple bits of user feedback that say, hey, I really want to work with AdSense, but I can't, please make that possible. That is what we put in a little file and go take it to the AdSense team when we go make a case for why they should engage with us more. So that's probably the best way to do it, unless you're already a big-time AdSense publisher, in which case you might already have a business contact at Google. Then you should totally harp on them and shoot them an email about how much you love Flutter, hopefully.
Nice. Okay, so we have the next one, and it's by Selva Kumar Murugesan. And do we have any leading website which has built on mobile app and web version with Flutter? I know only from mobile apps perspective for Flutter, I don't have much exposure to the web version of Flutter. I feel like I'm in the same realm where like I mostly have worked with Flutter mobile, and Flutter Web is a little bit of a new part of the project for me. So what are your thoughts on this?
That's an interesting question. I know Flutter Folio was something that we released last year at I/O, and it was intended to be a great example of that. And so if you haven't seen that, that is one that you can look at. There's also some that are just in the community, like Invoice Ninja has been around forever, you know, Hillel's app that he's been working and iterating on. And I think they have a demo for that. I don't think the code is open, but it definitely is out there. I'm trying to think of other. Shoot. I always think of these like half an hour too late. Whenever anyone asks for great examples, like I remember them half an hour too late. I know those are a couple though.
As a heads up, everybody follow Andrew. I do on Twitter,
Yeah,
and you can
when I
always
remember,
update us on there later.
Let me make a little note to myself.
And by the way, Selva Kumar, for because you know, when I'm looking for example projects, it kind of depends. Like for example, Andrew, right now that you just mentioned, oh, I don't know if they have their code open. For example, if I'm looking for projects where I want to know, oh, how have other people implemented this certain part of the of Flutter, how have they developed this in their project, then I might be super interested in that. I mean, honestly, as a developer, I'm always interested in the source code. But for example, if you're looking for, if you're trying to sell Flutter to a business or to a client or something, are you looking more for something like that? Like, are you looking for specific examples, like somebody who uses it and for mobile and web, and specifically does like gaming or something like that? I wonder if anybody knows, has any ideas on that. But yeah.
I just double checked, by the way, and It's All Widgets does have a category for web now, which is another good resource. I found a lot of good examples there. Another thing that Hillel built and maintains. And so you can filter specifically for open source projects that are published on the web.
By the way, It's All Widgets, does it have an app, a mobile app?
I don't know. I don't actually know even if I don't think that site itself is built with Flutter. to the web, because I think it's like 3 years old.
Okay.
It'd be kind of hilarious if it was built with React or something, or one of the other frameworks. No problem. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Valeria, do you mind if I step in for a second? You asked about interest in web apps and stuff. I just got off a contract working for a startup in Atlanta. I don't know if I can say anything about what they're doing, but it's a medical device startup, and they are building a Flutter application that's supposed to support web and tablets, and which is mobile, as well as phones and stuff. So I think there's a lot of interest in web and a lot of being able to branch out. But I think because web's still relatively new, like I kept talking to them about, it's not bleeding edge anymore, but it is definitely leading edge. I think there is probably a lot of interest in subtle things going on out there in the world that just haven't risen to the visibility yet. So I think there is a lot of good interest.
Yeah, it takes a while for that sort of ecosystem to build up. And also web, it's it's production ready, but at the same time, it hasn't been production ready as long as mobile has. And so like the team has had 3.5 years not only to launch mobile, but really polish it and make it as good an experience as they can. And they're continuing to do that. And we haven't had as much time to do that with web yet.
Exactly, and that's what they're finding. Their app is coming along, but they're still touchy-feely about what they can do to make a web app experience for their product.
I probably can't count on my 2 hands the number of meetings I've had trying to get Hot Reload working on the web and to get that staffed. That's something I desperately wish worked right now and doesn't. But it's not an easy problem to solve. And that's an example of one of those. It works great on mobile, but not yet on web.
And sorry, what was that? What works
Hot
great
Reload. Hot Reload doesn't work on the web, as I'm sure everyone in this room knows. And it's because it's a large thing to go out and implement. They'll have to put people on it for quite some time to get that launched. And so that's something that I've talked about in prioritization meetings a lot, because I feel like it's something that is a pain point for developers and sort of an annoyance that I wish really didn't exist.
Yeah, honestly, Hot Reload is like such a hot selling point for developers when I am talking to people about like my love for Flutter. One of the major things, because it's just so just such an easy thing that, I mean, not an easy thing to do, I'm sure, of course, but it's just, especially because I'm primarily an iOS developer. And those are the folks that I talk to the most about Flutter, other than the Flutter community. And I'm like, you guys, like, because in iOS, it takes so long. I mean, not that, Gradle is super fast. So, it's not like in comparison to Android, but yeah, it just takes forever, especially depending on which like iOS version you're testing on and stuff. Whereas with Hot Reload, it's beautiful. Your development workflow.
Yeah. We're also like this. Sorry to butt in. I know you're about to ask me a question, but like one of the reasons I wish we had Hot Reload is like we are this close to having like 8 commands that you can run on a command line with the GitHub command line tool and the Firebase command line tool to go from installing the Flutter SDK to having created an app, deployed it to Firebase hosting, and have it set up with GitHub Actions so that when you push new code, it automatically deploys. And the only piece of that missing is Hot Reload, which I feel like that's one of Flutter's best features. That's the only fun bit missing from that. But we're like this close to having such an awesome, like we could just put these 8 commands on the front page of the website and be like, this is a great way to start Flutter for the first time and just experience it. And we could take people through that in like half an hour of downloads and getting everything started. We're just missing Hot Reload. So
yeah, I have to say, I recently installed Flutter again, and I helped a couple of people set up their computer. And I feel like, and this might possibly be just me having a lot of practice in it, but I felt like the installation process was a lot easier than it was like 2 years ago when I first started out. So yeah, that has definitely like improved a lot. I have a question though about what you just said. When you said like the commands and then we're so close to like getting it to like actually deploy. When you say that, do you mean deploy to your CI/CD, deploy to your like just like push to GitHub, or deploy to the stores? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, it's not to deploy to a store, but deployed to a running web host, basically, with Firebase hosting. So like the web part of it, you can, I've somewhere in one of those Flutter design docs that we've all seen, the blue ones, I've got these eight commands that start with download the SDK, run Flutter create, and then use Firebase to initialize a project, use the GitHub command line tool to initialize a project. And Firebase is smart enough to hook into your GitHub integration and set up a GitHub action for you. And to have auto deploys and some things like that. And there are a few pain points in there. One of which is it would be great for new people if they could experience hot reload as part of that process. Because I feel like when people experience hot reload for the first time, they kind of get it. They understand what Flutter is really about, the developer experience, a part of it. And that's a missing piece. But you could have at the end of that a local application that's set up with a GitHub repository and a GitHub action so that when you push code to it, it automatically deploys to Firebase hosting as a correctly built application. And it doesn't, like I said, it's about 8 commands that you can do in the command line.
Nice. And that is in the Flutter designs.
This is in a
documentation?
it's in a design doc that I put together to take around to other people, but just like anybody, if you've been to, I think it's flutter.dev/go/design doc or something like that, there's a template that people use to propose changes to Flutter, like a standard design doc. Like, I want to add a widget to do X. There's a doc that you can go that illustrates how to make a case for building adding a new widget, and how you can explain to people how that widget would work, what problem it's solving, and stuff like that. And let me, actually, one second. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Magic of open source. Because we have redirects for all of these that we do sitting in a Firebase file. Yep. So if y'all take a look at this file, these are the redirects on the Flutter website that we use to give them short links that you can easily go to. And it works as a handy index of all of these design documents that have been put together over the past couple of years as people suggest changes.
Nice. Okay. So for the next one from Trevor Davis, it says for web, yeah, just a comment, I guess, but what are your thoughts on this? It says, it seems like bundle size will continually be a pain point. What are your thoughts on bundle size for when we're doing web projects with Flutter?
I think if you bring your own rendering stack with you, there's no way of getting around the fact that you're going to be carrying more code around, right? Like, that's one of the things that makes Flutter is the entire rendering stack is written in Dart and goes with you wherever you go. I think they're working on ways to mitigate this. They're always trying to bring the app size down and stuff like that. I know there's stuff going on right now that if you were to head over to probably the Flutter repo, I'm sure there's a project set up where you can see some things that they're trying to do to bring that down. I know they're trying, like I mentioned before, they're trying to make the experience of loading a page better. So if you do have to wait for one of those dependencies, we can at least make it pleasant and let you know how long you'll be waiting and stuff like that.
I did see some work on that. It looks really cool what they've got planned.
But like, we're like a Vue.js app that's using the DOM and stuff like that. Flutter's always going to be packing a little extra code because the rendering stuff is like that. We may get to the point where we can point people to the same pre-compiled versions of the SDK or something like that, and those could sit up, like Bootstrap, for example, has that like master copy of Bootstrap that's sitting on a CDN somewhere. and you can link directly to it, and then everybody gets the same cached copy, and so they may not need to reload it when they go to a new site. There may be something that they can do in that vein.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll be how low can, how small can we make that pain point, I think, rather than getting rid of it entirely.
Gotcha. Flutter Web has been useful for me already,
Oh, cool.
but it's always nice to when you get into conversations with other people that want to explore Flutter Web, there's always that, there's no way to make it work for everything, especially given the way that web has traditionally been set up.
Yeah.
Trevor, have you deployed anything with Flutter Web? Like, do you have stuff actually on the web right now?
I used to. It was a small project I was helping out with. There was a group out of Hawaii that wanted to set up a website around monk seal conservation, and I helped out with that. I stood up a website with Flutter because they kind of wanted to do the mobile app thing too. That's not currently live anymore though, but they are going to rebuild it with a more traditional web stack.
Cool. And okay, so the next one comes from Linus Lee. Any examples of a Flutter app that runs on all platforms? iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, web, and form factors such as Google Home Mini. This one's interesting, like including like all our IoT integration. Yeah.
The Google Home, the Google Assistant team has been using Flutter. They were one of the early customers. They're in the showcase, I think, on flutter.dev. I don't know if they've built anything that also works on the other platforms, just because their platform is so weird, to be honest. Like, it's very unique. Let me look up Flutterfolio real quick and see if I can find the hub for it. Yeah. I can paste that in there. And so that is a file that is a project that builds for all 6 platforms. And they do have a running version for it on the web. That was the primary engineering on that was done a year ago. So bear that in mind, because it's a demo that released for IO last year, but that is something that builds for all 6. We're also in the process of trying to get as many of our samples in the Flutter samples repo to start building for every platform by default as possible. We recently went through and we had to add minimum window size to a whole bunch of samples, because there was nothing to preventing you from just grabbing the lower right hand corner of the window and squishing them to be about 2 pixels, at which point all the render flexes overflow. And so we had to do a little maintenance there just to update all of them to have a minimum size. But Windows has landed at this point. Linux and Mac OS, we're still working on them, but I think we're getting to a point now where Flutter will know it's not going to be known as a mobile thing necessarily anymore, which it has been for a long time. I think we'll start seeing people and hearing people talk more about Flutter as just a toolkit that goes wherever you want it to go. That is certainly my hope.
When I see that comment, what it really reminds me of when, if you guys have seen the Flutter Interact from 2019, the different talks that they did. I don't remember who did that talk, but there was one where they announced that we were going into, I think it was going from alpha to beta for web. I think I could be wrong on the timeline, but there was a big announcement for web, and then they showed how, and they had like that octopus, remember, with all the devices. So then they had like an iPad and I think a different tablet and a Mac and all that sort of stuff. So, and they deployed one app to like all of them at the same time, including web. So I think that's just what reminds me of. But then like when I saw Google Home Mini, like that threw me off, because I was like, oh, I've never seen that actually, like to my knowledge. I haven't seen like an app that's like, and it's an interesting like thought experiment actually, thinking of an app that you use across the board, like on your, like maybe controlling your like home automation, you know, but still it's like, because the user interface is the first thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking of app design and just like mobile and web. So then how that drives into using like your Google Home and stuff. But I guess the connectivity part will still be the same, and you actually want them to be all connected. So yeah, interesting note.
An interesting bit of trivia, because you mentioned Flutter Interact. One of the people that we interviewed during, because I was part of the glue in between talks at that event where we would do Q&A. One of the people that we interviewed just joined Google and is going to be working on the material design team.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah, she is a design expert, and so she was nice enough to come on at the event. Her name's Gina Ann, and she talked to us about a design system that she had built at Salesforce and some of the fundamentals of doing that. And now she's going to be working with us.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congrats, Gina. That's so cool. So the next one from Marco Sevilla. Hi all, what's next for desktop, Mac OS or Linux?
GitHub is probably the better authority there than I am. I know there's still a few outstanding issues for both that they want to get nailed down. I don't know which one is currently leading compared to the other. But we're getting pretty close now.
Cool. And now from Trevor, I just remember that Rive's web app is built on Flutter. Oh, I didn't know that the Rive, but that's cool because Rive is is such a Flutter champion. So that's really cool that their web app is made on that. I've been meaning to get into doing I've never actually done it. And I've done like little animations and apps and stuff like that, but I've never done like an actual animated project. Like also to bring up again, Flutter Interact, there was one that he wasn't live presenting, but he was in part of the how developers use Flutter. And there was this one guy who was an artist, and he used Flutter to do his it's not living art. It was like in a I don't know if it was web or I'm assuming mobile. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but it was like these beautiful animations, and I've really wanted to start getting into that. But it's that kind of thing for me that's like a passion project that I never actually push the gas pedal on. But speaking of Rive, I always remember Rive, and that they're always there for whenever you really want to get into animations and stuff. So I will check them out now. It has always been on my to-do list, but definitely getting into it now. Then now the next one from Linus Lee. Thanks, Andrew. Follow up on that. Any car console running on Flutter yet?
I have a feeling if I worked at Toyota, I could see what they're doing currently with Flutter. I haven't actually seen it myself. I know there's still car companies move pretty slow compared to the rest of us sometimes. And so I know they're working on it. I don't know of any actual demos or anything like that that's come out. Yeah, not off the top of my head. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, for Toyota, so I haven't looked into if it would be open source. I'm assuming no. That sounds like a very controlled environment that they would have. But I think, and I could be wrong about this, but I think Very Good Ventures has that account, right? Or are they doing it internally?
I don't know. I haven't heard of PGV being involved, but I mean, they have their hands in so many projects when it comes to Flutter. It wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah, I think I read it on Twitter if I read it somewhere. But yeah, I was wondering too if they're developing internally and therefore getting a lot of people hiring at Toyota and building their Flutter team, or if somebody has that account. but yeah, I haven't seen anything, and I've looked because it seems like such an interesting project. I haven't seen anything about like them having any like either demos or open code on that. So I wouldn't know. But yeah, it's super exciting to see what they're gonna come up with. By the way, and it's fine if you can't tell us if you know or if you don't know, but by any chance, do you like, has anybody heard or does anybody know like what year Toyota is actually planning on the release? Because I do know that I have been involved in other, not with Flutter, but with like in-car like console stuff, and you develop with years in advance. So like I remember we had one project that was kind of come out in like 2021, and we were developing it back in like 2017 or so. So sometimes you have like a crazy lead up there. So I wonder if there's any timeline at all, because I have looked and I haven't seen anything. So does anybody know?
Definitely not on my end. I know that they've been doing heavy engineering on it at least all last year. But as you said, I have no idea how long it takes to put together a dashboard software system. It could be a 4-year project for all I know. Although hopefully Flutter makes it quicker and, and easier.
Yeah. You know, like maybe that could be the help needed. And I wonder, because you know, it's a huge lead up, and I bet that, like, I wonder if a lot of it is like safety regulations. I don't know. Maybe. But like I've never been involved in like self-driving stuff. And that's like very groundbreaking. So I don't know if yeah, like what really is involved in that. I don't know. Has anybody ever, like in this group right now, worked in like self-driving software or anything like that? I bet that it would be heavily regulated. Cool. So, any more questions? I don't see any more questions coming in right now. And any comments or anything? We're a very this is a very nice, tight-knit group, so feel free to just jump in if you have any comments or anything. So another comment from Trevor Davis. Andrew, what are you most excited about this year?
I have 2 answers to that. One, you know, I think it's likely that we'll, like I said, we're going to get to 6 platforms this year, and I think that's going to be an amazing moment, because I remember being at Flutter Live in 2018, where we sort of made that promise to people that like this is where Flutter can go, and this is where, you know, we want to take it there. Come on this ride with us. And so to see that come to fruition, and to see the team deliver on that, I think will be a really cool moment. And so I'm definitely looking forward to that. There's another thing personally. My team has 3 open jobs right now. We're hiring 2 tech writers and a developer relations engineer, and that'll bring us up to a size where I think we will almost be big enough to do all the things that we need to do. And so that'll be a great moment for our team as well, to get a little bit staffed up and to be able to do more of these things that we've been wanting to do, especially now, hopefully, that the world is going to be able to open up a little bit more. It's going to enable us to be a better part of this community, and do more to serve it. So I'm looking forward to that. Oh, we got more questions now. Were you answering a question that somebody else posed, or were you asking me if that was in fact the case? I believe that's the case. That there is like a Dart sort of runner for applications that Fuchsia has. And if you go look at the source, you can find it. I think that is the case where they have sort of a built version of some of the Flutter dependencies on there. And so your apps don't have to ship with the entire stack, so to speak, like Dart UI and the Dart runtime and stuff like that. They're already present on the device, just like the Java runtimes, the Android runtime and the JVM are present on Android devices. I think that's the case. We actually have somebody on the team that used to be on the DevRel team for Fuchsia. It's a shame he's not here. But I believe that's the case. There are some advantages there for Fuchsia. I say that as someone who has only once ever interacted with Fuchsia as a developer in one internal code lab. So take that with a huge grain of salt.
Oh no, please go ahead.
Mhm. Cool. Mhm. Hmm. Do you have a link you can share? I don't mean to put you on the spot if you're not ready to share it. Don't feel pressured. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd love to check it out.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, like I said before, I'm super interested in animations and stuff, and then gaming ultimately seems so cool. Um, and to piggyback on what we were talking about right now, and the next question from Joey Connors, any thoughts on Fuchsia, or is this a long way off? And to piggyback on that, Andrew, what are your thoughts on Fuchsia, and like how does it relate to Flutter, and specifically like us being able to develop like better like games and animations and stuff?
I'm regrettably ignorant of Fuchsia, partially on purpose, because I'm terrible at keeping secrets. So I try not to learn them. And a lot of Fuchsia is still being worked on, and the product plan for it, I think they don't really talk about so much. I think, Fuchsia is running in my house right now, just like it's running a lot of people's homes because it was shipped to the smaller Google homes. Um, and um, and so I know they're having success. I don't know what their next steps are. I don't, because of the nature of it, I doubt it's going to be something that in the near term you're going to see like Google DevRel come out and be like, and here's how you develop Fuchsia stuff, right? I don't think that's likely to happen right now. I think they'll mostly work on internal things and work with partners and stuff like that, as they have been doing for a while now. But as I said, enormously ignorant of Fuchsia, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt.
All right, so the next one from Michael Jordan. Yeah, I was sad to see Chris Sells, I know, leave Google and the Flutter team. Do you know who will be replacing him on the Flutter team?
I don't. I think they're still looking at some candidates to replace him. In the meantime, his responsibilities have been sort of farmed out and covered, and covered that way. But Chris was a weird dude. Like, he was technically a product manager, and normally they like everybody on our team knows about coding and engineering to greater or lesser degrees. But normally product managers work in docs and like vision statements and stuff like that, and business partnerships and things. And then there was Chris, who's just like doing that and also coding a whole bunch at the same time, because he's just weird that way and multi-talented. And so he left behind an odd pair of shoes to fill. I don't think any single person's going to fill them in the same way, and we'll just find a new balance. And so we'll probably find somebody, you know, for example, that gives great tech talks like he did. Yeah, that's something a PM can do many times. We're probably not going to find somebody that goes off and like works on Go Router, which he has also done, and getting that bootstrapped and so on. And so, yeah, like I said, I'm not sure who will replace him. But it's, you know, it's weird. We don't seem to have run out of great people yet, you know, with the Flutter team. We always seem to have good people coming around anytime that we have an opening, and something to be grateful for, especially now that I'm a manager, and hiring is part of my job. So, yeah.
Nice. So the next one.
Now, by the way, that's partially y'all's doing. People come to us saying they want to work on our team because the Flutter community is so great. That is literally true. I'm not blowing smoke there. And so all the work that y'all do to make Flutter an energetic and welcoming and fun kind of place for people to hang out and be involved with other people, that helps our team get good folks to come on.
Yeah, and honestly, keeping the community has just kept just being so welcoming and stuff, I have found through the years for everybody. So it just it's just a really nice place to come to. That is just a pleasure to like do meetups and like meet folks that do Flutter and stuff. Mm-hmm. For the next one, from Jake Frazier, does Flutter support Android 12 dynamic colors theming? I tried using a package and couldn't get the colors to match up to the colors from Google Apps.
So yes, it does, but a little bit of that support is still landing right now. I pulled up GitHub in another window to see if I could find out if there's a burn down list. Because I've talked about this with Hans, who's the lead on the frameworks team. And I know that there are a few things left that they want to do. Yeah, so you might check that out on GitHub. I think there's some things that have landed recently as well that might roll out in the next release.
By the way, do we have is there a date for the next release?
No, I don't think so. We usually, generally, once every 3 months is the pace that they try to keep.
Okay, cool. Now the next one is from Mark Theas. I'm new to Flutter. Welcome, Mark. We're so glad to have you. What is your recommendation for structuring your project when developing for iOS, Android, and web? Web responsive interface significantly different from mobile, so trying to maximize reuse, but of course many differences.
I just got a message, by the way, that said something about me getting dropped from the call in 10 minutes. Is that normal?
Well, Google Meet now has the 1 hour
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
thing. So so it does, we do have a hard stop at 6:59 because the call started at 5:59.
I wonder if there's a way we can help with that. Let me make a note. See if there's anything I can do. I should answer quickly though. Glad you joined the community, Mark. I would say the biggest advice I could give you is not to stress yourself out about it. I've seen people worry a lot about how to structure applications and stuff like that. And the truth is there are multiple solutions that people can use that work out just fine. I think, and this has been true since the days of like the flutterarchitecturesamples.com that Brian Egan made like 4 years ago, where he was talking about architectural patterns and code structure. I think the most important thing you could do if you're thinking about code reuse across those platforms is to be conscious about where you want to make decisions about how to adapt. There are places where the SDK can adapt for you, and it will, because almost everybody's going to want the same behavior. For example, like on mobile, on iOS, it'll center a title in the title bar, in the app bar, and on Android, it'll put it on the left. Because that's how it's normally done on those platforms. And because almost everybody's going to want the same decision, that decision is baked into the SDK. For other things, though, because people are going to want different things, they can't do that in the SDK. And so you as a developer have to make those decisions. For example, this is a trivial example, but like segmented UI control on iOS, there's no Android equivalent of that necessarily. You could write your own using the widgets. You could use a row of buttons. You could use a drop down or some radio buttons, but it's a decision that you have to make. And so identifying those early on and then building a widget to encapsulate those decisions can really help you keep your code clean, whatever other approaches you're using. Just being very conscious about where those decision points are. And putting the decision into, we say everything's a widget and each widget has a single purpose. Representing your decision about how to adapt to a platform is a great purpose for a widget. And so having an application class that knows how to build 3 different layouts, say, based on the size of the viewport, that's a decision that you can make and put into a widget. And then those individual classes with the layouts, they're opinionated about where things are going to go. And that's a decision a widget makes too. So yeah, I would lean on making everything a widget and don't stress about it too much, because you'll probably find that you can build something that works out really well in a number of ways.
Cool. And I'm thinking right now, I don't have any resources off the top of my head, but if anything, a cool book idea or a cool idea for at least a blog post or something would be like Flutter architecture and design paradigms that we can use that are reusable for mobile versus a web Flutter project, and something that can work for both. So I don't have that off the top of my head, but it would be cool if we don't have it to make it.
Mm-hmm.
So the
I
next
really
one,
want to just jump in. Thank you so much, and thank you for the welcome, and thank you for the advice there, Andrew. See you next time too.
Yeah. Hopefully it ends up being useful. If not, let me know and I'll change it for the next person.
Okay, great.
okay, the next one from Jose Gregorio Taveras, new to Flutter and loving it so far. What resources are out there to help people adopt it and or support new communities around it? Would love to start Latino Spanish focused Flutter come. I want to say before I give the floor off to Andrew, there is Flutter Spain. They are fantastic. And it's open to everybody, obviously, but all Spanish speakers. You don't have to be like from Spain or anything, or be like physically able to go to those meetups to be able to be a part of them. So that is a great resource. And then also there is also a couple of Flutter meetups that are also pretty cool. One in Costa Rica, one in Mexico. So those are resources available as of now. So it's basically meetups that have Spanish content in Spanish. And now I'll pass it on to Andrew for extra details on that.
I'm just grabbing what I hope is the correct link. Yep. Jose, let me paste the URL in here. This is the Flutter Meetup Network, which officially launched. There've always been Flutter meetups almost as long as there's Flutter, but we last year in October we relaunched an effort to organize them a little bit better and help people locate them. So that's a link to find them. You can see meetups there from all over the world. I actually wouldn't say much different from what you said, Valeria. I think there are community. One of the things we try to measure for is in our survey, now that we measure things relating to our community, is how many people are able to find groups that speak their language and that they feel comfortable in. Because everybody's looking, everybody's a little bit different and looking for a slightly different kind of group. And that's something we're trying to make progress on. And I think the Meetup Network is how we're going to do that. There are definitely groups there from countries all over the world speaking all kinds of different languages. And you might start one. Exactly. There you go. Start one in the Caribbean. And so, yeah, you can hopefully find one that you might enjoy being with now, and you can be an agent of change and start one to help everybody else.
Okay, by the way, I think we shouldn't be kicked out now because it was just like you had to just like sign up for the paid account, and that should be enough. So I think we shouldn't be kicked out anytime soon. Yeah. So what else? Resources. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely can start one. And it would be cool, Jose. So, and the first thing that I recommend you to do is to look if there is already a meetup in your area, or a meetup, that you're like interested in and stuff. Because something that helped me out a lot is I am a co-organizer of the Flutter Chicago. And it was super cool for me that I joined it when it was actually already going, instead of like starting it from scratch. I totally recommend starting it from scratch if there isn't one, of course. And if there is one already, like, I totally recommend starting one. But it's really cool if you can have like a group already made as well. So I also encourage you to join in and try to help with meetup organization and stuff, because with meetups you can always use the help with extra organizers and stuff. So yeah, checking out if there's any in your area would be really cool. Then there's Saba's website, which I'm gonna check out. Cool. Now from Mark sorry for I am sure I'm going to mispronounce this. Sporleder. I think. I'm new to Flutter. I'm starting out with Flutter Flow. Any opinions on Flutter Flow?
I actually have not tried Flutter Flow myself. It is definitely something I've seen other people on the team quite excited about. And we were happy to feature them at one of our previous events. We had a great developer story with those guys. I think it's an area in which we're probably likely to see more active development. It seems like low code stuff it seems to be getting more and more press every time I look around. I'm curious how that's going to shake out, and not talking about Flutter Flow here. I'm talking about in general, how it's not going to be terrible. Because I feel like there's always a push-pull when people try to attempt those sorts of solutions about what does the code really look like under the hood and stuff like that. I think Flutter being completely open source might help us there, because there's no hiding anything. But yeah, I have not used Flutter Flow myself, but I know that the people I know inside Google that have used it had nothing but positive things to say about it. So
Then I do see from Jose asking, could you post those here? So I am posting. I just went to Twitter, and Twitter is a great space, by the way. I super recommend Flutter Twitter and our community there. The link to Flutter España is Flutter_AS, and I am posting it right now. Then someone that is fantastic help also. Let me see if I can find him. He is in Mexico, and his name is Argel Bejarano. I'm pretty sure he's a GED, I think. And he also posts, oh, and there is another one that, I'm sorry, Jose, I am blanking right now what his name is, but he is GDE from Peru, and he's also fantastic, and he has a YouTube channel with really great content for developing Flutter, and all of it is in Spanish. So I really love his YouTube channel. Yeah, I'm blanking on his name, but if we connect on Twitter, then I am sure that he'll come to me, just like with Andrew. Like in 30 minutes, I'll totally remember, and I'll be like, oh.
I think you're thinking of Diego Velasquez.
Yes,
Just
Diego
a second,
Velasquez.
I'll post his Twitter account here.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I follow him too. He's great.
Yeah, and again, he has a YouTube channel, which I'm sure that he must have it like linked on to his Twitter. So from Twitter, you'll be able to find him. And yeah, he's a fantastic resource and a really nice guy. Then from Saba, interesting monthly Flutter challenge. I haven't checked that out yet. That's cool. Then yes, no meetups in the Caribbean. We have to fix that. Absolutely. Totally agree with you.
I can think of nothing my team would love more than a reason to go and do a talk in the Caribbean and have an excuse to do that. So you'd have a lot of Googlers behind you if you set up a group like that.
Nice. And then from Mark, how is Flutter Flow affiliated with Flutter? Are they part of Google with active development coinciding with Flutter?
No, I believe they're a separate group. But there's somebody that our team has interacted with to try and figure out, like, we want Flutter to work for everyone. If they're doing something a little bit new, there's usually folks from our team that'll try and engage with companies like that and see how we can make Flutter better. That's an opportunity for Flutter to grow a lot of the time. Were they? They were a YC company, I think. Y Combinator, yeah. So yeah, they were part of that startup incubator, I believe. Winter 21, yeah. Fun fact, Eric Seidel, one of the founders of Flutter, is also a YC veteran, but from like 15 years before that. So
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are at time and I don't see any more questions right now. So I would like to move on super quick. Oh, and okay, so one more question, if Andrew, if you can stay for us a few more minutes. So from Selva Kumar Murugesan, what things to be considered for Flutter scaling, for scaling a Flutter app? Any recommendations for scaling a Flutter app or making it scalable?
So does this mean like in terms of the size of the code base, adding engineers to it and things like that, I'm guessing? Number of users. Okay.
This is where architecture is going to be important too.
Yeah, I think there's also some, to be honest, I think a lot of the challenges most of us are pretty equipped to deal with, like even things like how to architect an app. Those are things that keeping code clean is something we've all been doing for a long time, and we at least have instincts for that. I think for scaling an app in terms of that number of users, testing is probably the biggest area to look at, because when you get to that point, you're going to want to know how many different devices are you testing on, especially for Android, where you have such a wider range of screen sizes and hardware platforms and stuff like that. Having, you know, real integration tests in addition to widget and unit tests, end-to-end stuff. I think that's probably the first thing that I would look at if I had an app that I built and it had gotten a little bit of traction and I was like, oh, I should, you know, I need to make this ready to scale. The thing that I know I would be missing in that scenario is testing. So that'd probably be the first thing I would point to.